Hi guys, and welcome back to Jay's Permaculture Allotment. Now, I decided not to bother doing a January food forest tour because there wasn't much difference between December and January. So I thought I'd make up for it and do the February one now. I've done it towards the end of February just so you can see that there's more changes. So let's start. We're going to start off with the first half food forest plot that you saw the construction of. And then I'll show you the rest that I've continued to build since that. So here we go. Okay, so this is the back of the original food forest half plot, which has now become a full plot food forest. And then remember, I also did another section on another half plot. So we're now almost 1.5 plots of food forest. So as you can see from the previous video, we now have signs of life. We have flowers. So we've got daffodils in here. Now the good thing with having bulbs is we have flowers early, so always good for pollinators, but also good visually. But when they die down, you can still plant above them. So that way you're double using the space, so you don't have to think, oh, well, they're there, so I can no longer use the space. Double check, because certain plants don't like being planted with things like alliums because of the chemicals that they exude. So we've got our fruit trees. Now remember, these ones have only been in, it'll be about a year now. So, and these shape-wise aren't brilliant, because when I got them, these were just cheap ones from Tesco's, just to fill the space at the back. And some of the branches had been snapped off, etc. And the way that they had obviously been pruned previously hasn't been good. So I thought I'm just going to leave them for this year. I've already cut off any dead branches or anything that looked diseased. And I have used a neem-based spray just in case they had any fungal infections on them. But obviously, as time goes by, the system will take hold and there'll be the relevant bacteria in the soil and the relevant predatory insects that would actually help battle all the negative type of things that we have on there. Okay, so we have an apple. Now, it looks as if we've got some fruiting spurs on here, just a few. But again, these only went in the ground a year ago, so I'm not too worried if I don't get any fruit on them this year. And you can see the reason that I've got trees at the back, because I've got that eyesore behind me, which is someone else's. Then we've got the globe artichoke. So if you want something that's going to be green virtually all year round, but also great for a ground cover, so it's going to keep the base of your trees cool, but also great for chop and drop, so I can pull leaves off the base and mulch around the base of trees or other plants. Always good to have things like this in a system. We've also got lupins, so it's coming back now, which is a nitrogen fixer, but also the pollinators adore it. This is just some English mace, so it's different from the mace spice. And then obviously there's strawberries as ground cover. Also got some kiwi vines. These are ones that I grew from seed, so don't know if they would ever bear fruit, whether they'd be self-fertile or not. But I've got several of them, so hopefully if they're not self-fertile, one will be a male, one will be a female somewhere along the line. That's just some chard at the back, and some red mustard in with the lavender and feverfew. Then I've deliberately left fairly long stems where I have some yak on, because there'd be some beneficial insects that would use the actual tubes of that over winter to lay eggs, etc., and just to keep themselves warm. So the more things like that you can leave as long as possible, the better. And then any long ones that I did chop, I've also put back onto the ground, which will mulch back in. But again, insects in between can use those tubes to nest in. And you'll find it be the beneficial ones more so than the negative ones that will use them. Okay, so the first two trees were apple. This one's a plum. Now again, Victoria plum, this was just a Tesco's one. This was no more than 5 foot tall when I put it in. And as you can see, it's a lot taller than that now, and I've taken probably about 2 foot off the top and taken out any of the branches that were facing inwards. But there are also lots of fruit buds or flower buds on there, which I was really surprised, being that it's only been in the ground a year. And same with the Stella cherry. It's already got the fruiting buds on there. Let's just zoom out. And then we've got the fig, and it's also already got some braver crops on. The ones that have gone brown, they'll fall off anyway. But you'll see there's also some forming that will end up being figs. Some will be leaf shoots, but some of those will be figs. Then this one is my Cornelian Cherry. So again, still a young tree, so I was surprised that we've got the flowers on it. But it's really pretty, and I've seen lots of the little flies on it, more so than things like bees. So I'm not sure what their natural pollinators would be. But these are semi-self-fertile, so you'll get some crops, but you would get more prolific crops if you had other ones around as well. Then we've got our Perennial Kale. You can see it's delicious. And the good thing is the purple indicates that it's got anthocyanin, which is an antioxidant. So brilliant to have in your diet. And again, this one is available to munch on all year for years and years. And instead of sowing seeds for this one, you actually just take cuttings. And literally it's as easy as cut off a branch, take off the lower leaves, and then stick the other piece in either in a pot or in the ground, and just keep the base moist but not wet. Red Russian Kale. Now where the canes are, there's some Chinese yams. I don't know if you remember from last year. So first year the tubers at the base are sort of smallish, but from the second year they actually become big, sort of sweet potatoey size. But if you leave them much longer than that, and if your soil is really nutritious, then you'll end up with ones that are like 3 foot long that you'll have to get a digger to try and get them out. So the other thing is they also produce an edible air tuber, so which are the size of probably it's sort of between a large pea and a small shelled hazelnut, that sort of size. But they've got a good crunch to them, which is cool. So you get 2 crops from the one. I'm not sure if the leaves are edible, so it could potentially be 3. We just got the tansy in the corner, and that's just some of the dead leaves that I pulled off from the kale, which I will collect and put in with my compost. I could actually leave them around the base, but I don't want to encourage too many things like slugs. Whereas if you've got the bigger leaves like this, they don't seem to attract the slugs so much for some reason. Although I may try leaving these just to see as an experiment, but move them further in so it's not so unsightly around the base of a plant. These were just some broccoli plants. They were just sort of the runt of the litter, as it were. So they went in, but I have harvested some broccoli from them. But again, the leaves are edible, and if nothing else, I can compost them. It just gives me more available plant matter to compost. We've got our perennial Welsh leeks here, so they're bunching onions, and these are the red variety. I don't know if you can make that out on the base. So this is a new tree that I've put in, and this one's a medlar. So I don't know if you can see that. So that only went in the ground earlier this month. This is just where I pulled out some weeds, just ready for me to put a bit more compost around and wood chip around the base of some of the other plants. Some of the so-called weeds, like this one here, cleaver, is actually a great bitter detoxifier, so you can make like a tea with this one. So the reason I tend to leave it a little bit longer is because it works as a great ground cover, but it only stems from one little sort of stem and then branches out from that. So when you do want to get rid of it, it's easy, and just by clearing one plant it clears like a whole patch. But I'd say it's a usable, and it would be classed as a medicinal herb. So don't get rid of all of these type of things. They're great to have within your system. So this is the Australian mountain pepper. Now I believe from memory that all the ones that I've got are all male. So and you do need a male and a female if you want the peppercorns from it. But the good thing is the leaves are also good as a flavour, so you can use those in your soups, etc. We've got a gooseberry here, and then there's a rhubarb here. It's only a young one. It went in just as a little root last year, but it produced massive leaves, so I didn't harvest any of the leaves from it last year, so I'll see how it goes this year, because I have got plenty of rhubarb on my other patches. Then I've got a large bush rose that's been here for years and years, so it's one of the few good things that was here when I moved onto the plot, along with all the rubbish. So I've pruned that back quite hard. Well, the red Russian kale, there's still some yacon in the ground over here. There's some perennial flowering plants in the ground. This is a young fig tree. It's a brown turkey. Now we did get hit by minus 6.1 weather here, and that's Celsius rather than Fahrenheit. So we've got 2 jujube trees planted here. Now the reason I planted them here is they will get full sunlight, but the neighbour has this structure at the back, so I'm hoping that would actually help create a bit of thermal mass here and keep it warmer longer. Although they're hardy down to, I think it's something like minus 15. They're really hardy. This is a Bramley Apple, a new one. Now I don't know if you remember, I grew some lemons from seed, so I had some spares, so I actually put a few in the ground. And this one, although it's lost its leaves, still seems to be alive, which I noticed some of the others seem to have almost died. So this one looks one of the strongest, so we shall see this year if it does make it right through, which would be great if I can have a citrus that is hardy and say it took temperatures of minus 6.1. Now this again was another experiment. Tamarillo, you can see it looks pretty dead, but it depends on the root system because it can reshoot from the base. So I will leave it there long enough to see if it is going to do anything. I will cut it back just to see if there are any signs of life, but I've got a feeling it might be dead, this one. But you never know, plants can surprise you, especially with figs. Figs can look like they're completely dead and then they'll send up new shoots from the base. So if you do have figs, especially if you are in the colder climate and the whole top system dies, don't necessarily write it off. Just cut back the dead wood, and then in spring you'll hopefully see that there is some growth. So we've got the goji in the back. So this was the amber goji that I got, so it's different. The berries on it are actually a lot bigger than the sort of orangey red variety. So this is an Ulster apple. Again, I've pruned it back, but it produced some lovely apples last year. And my nectarine that was holding onto its leaves right up until I think it was more or less the end of December, it had lots of growth last year. So this is just a dwarf patio type peach nectarine. I do have a peach variety as a version over on the other bit, which I'll show you in a minute. But again, this has got loads and loads of flowering buds on, so fingers crossed on this one. Again, just as an experiment, I put a couple of blueberries within the system, and I've mulched them with some conifer leaves and some pine needles. But ground wise, I haven't amended the soil, but obviously they were grown in ericaceous. I may have added one handful of ericaceous just at the base, but I just wanted to do an experiment because there's mushroom compost in here and leaf mold. I just wanted to see how it would do, and it appears to be doing pretty good. There's new buds on it. Again, more bunching onions here. Another fig, although most of my figs are on the other plot. And we've got some hyssop here. Pluot's coming back to life. Now this year it's got some flower buds on. So I've never tried a pluot to eat. And this is the pink candy variety. That's the label if you want to check it out. I got this one from Sutton's. So again, if you're UK based, that's the only place that I've actually seen this actual variety over here. There may be other places that do it, so let me know if you found it elsewhere. Another fig here. I believe this one was a panache, which the actual fig has like humbug stripes on it, so it'd be quite cool. And I don't know if you can make out, but the actual stem itself is variegated. Okay, then this is actually an apricot. Now this was one that I've had a replacement for because the root system etc on it I wasn't impressed with, but the company were great. They replaced it straight away, but I thought, well, let's give it a chance, and I've put it in the ground anyway as it was a freebie, so we should see how that does. You can see the sage still alive, but it's had some dieback, but it will come back. I will cut back some of the dead stuff, but again, I found quite a lot of ladybirds within this massive sage, so I didn't want to touch it too early, so I'm gonna leave it for probably towards the end of March, and then I'll cut back any that needs cutting back. But you'll see what I mean about the cleaver plant. It comes up everywhere. Obviously we've got more of the red Russian kale. This is delicious, and it's been really prolific, and again has that purple vein going through it, so it's got the anthocyanin antioxidants in there. Then you've got red love apple tree. Again, shape wise it's not brilliant at the moment, but when a plant arrives to you, you have to deal with the branches that it came with. Now this had a really spindly long branch on it, So, but it was the only branch that had any flower buds on, so I didn't really want to cut it off, so I supported it and actually ended up with some fruit on it last year. So we shall see how it goes, and then as the tree grows, obviously I shall reshape it. More of the globe artichoke, more perennial onions. Now this one was a Porthos cherry, so it's a bush cherry, this one here. So the maximum height it will get to is, I believe, 2 meters, but grows as a bush. And it's not on a root stock, it's actually on its own stock, and that is how it naturally grows. So if you can root cuttings from that, you'll end up with multiples of the exact same plant, which is great. Again, when I said I put blueberries in, this is another one of the blueberries. You can see it's already got leaves and new growth on it. Again, everything still looks a little bit ropey because it's only just coming back to life. It's another red love apple tree. Now red love are not self-fertile, so make sure if you've got red love apple trees that you have other apple trees within the same group so they flower at the same time. It's no good having lots of varieties of apple trees if the ones that are not self-fertile don't flower at the same time as some of the others, because otherwise you're not going to get any fruit set on them. More red Russian kale, you can never have too much of it. This is a dwarf blackberry. Again, it's thornless, which is an extra bonus. You can see it's already got flower buds on it, and we're at the end of February. It's crazy. This one I believe is called Little Black Prince, and I got this one from Yew Gardens. I've got 2 of these, and the fruits on them are colossal. So little plant but big fruits. Okay, another Bramley apple. Again, Bramley apples are not self-fertile, but because I have other varieties, I think it's something like 12 varieties of apple. So I've made sure that they are crossovers, so each one will get pollinating partners. So where the canes are, I've got some Apios, which is a edible tuber. It's sort of potatoey like, but they grow on long vine stems. So you know how you have a chain of sausages. When you harvest these are on one long chain with lots of tubers growing along that chain. So it's really interesting to see. Now I only started off with one little tuber, and I ended up with, I think, 10 tubers from that one. So I've put those all back in. I didn't bother eating any. I just spread them out and put them back in the ground. So hopefully they'll multiply until I can get enough to be able to grow enough to eat. And then we just got a rose, some Yams. I think this was bluebells in with the daffodil. We've got various different flowers and things in here. So this bed I call my Merlin bed, in remembrance of my first allotment fox that unfortunately got hit by a car and had his jaw broken. So I had to get the rescues to come out, and we had him euthanized because they couldn't fix the jaw. They did an x-ray and the actual bone had crumbled of the jaw, so there was nothing for them to wire and repair. So we had to say goodbye to him. But those of you who have seen Baby, my allotment fox, that is his daughter. So she still comes virtually every day, and she's pregnant at the moment. So I'm hoping over the next couple of months we start seeing the babies. Okay, let's move over here. So we've got the 4 berries. So I've got the amber variety. So they're quite a sharp berry. It's supposed to have a mangoish flavour. I don't personally find that myself, but each to their own. And then the variety next to it is actually a black version of the berry. And again, they recommend that you have the two varieties, and they help get a bigger harvest with the cross-pollination. Now I will have an apple tree where this cane is, so there will be quite a lot of things packed into the spaces, but you want to make sure that there's enough food within the ground to nourish all the plants that you're putting in, and that you've got things that work at different heights. So the bush I can maintain at whatever height I really want to. The tree will get a little bit taller, but once it is taller, I will just obviously make sure I maintain the shape of it so light can still penetrate through. Although most berry bushes are fine within partial shade. So because the sun actually starts off over here, it would get sun throughout the day. So even when this tree here grows, it's still going to have direct sunlight various points throughout the day. And again, there's a fig in here, so it's got a little fig on there, but that one will fall off. It was a little bit big going into winter, so if you're going to have braver crops, ones that are formed on last year's growth, then you want to make sure that it's no bigger than a pea, because otherwise this is what happens. It goes brown and then it'll fall off anyway. So we've got red currants here, we've got a cherry tree here. Now I don't know what variety of cherry this one is, because it was one of the trees that was already here, but again it produced lots of fruit last year. Now remember, I had the dwarf nectarine. This is the dwarf peach, and again this one held on to its leaves a long time too, but again it's got lots of fruiting buds on there. There are flowers and herbs interplanted around here, so I've got marshmallow as well as some wild strawberries. There are bulbs that will come up at various points throughout the year. It's actually a nitrogen fixer. This is a Russian olive, that silvery colour stem there. It was just one from seed. I will probably end up relocating that because it's a bit close to where I want it. You just never know if things are going to take. So the good thing is you can transplant plants, especially when they're sort of fairly young and their root systems haven't developed fully. Again, this is a plum tree. Now I've never seen this one flower or fruit, but again, with stone fruit you're not really supposed to prune it over the autumn winter. It's supposed to be a summer pruning. So I took off some of the dead and diseased sections, and it appears to have a few fruit buds on this year, but there's too many direct upright branches here, which isn't ideally how you want your tree to be growing, because it tends to fruit on the side branches rather than the upright ones. So I will be pruning that one to reshape it. I'll probably have to prune it fairly hard. And we've got lemon sorrel, again another perennial. There's more red currants. That's just some more flowering plants here. Beetroot, red Russian kale, terrific, which is another berry. It has sort of a sherbety flavour. It's quite delicious, so I'm pleased that that one's doing well. And then zoom in here, where you can see the shoots down here. This is actually Caucasian spinach, so it's a perennial It's a climbing plant, but you use the leaves like a spinach. So, okay, and now I'm not going to show you the full other half to this plot. I'll do that on the next tour on the March one, because there'll be a lot more things to show you. But let's quickly scoot over. Remember I was telling you about the perennial broccoli. So remember the size of the previous one that I showed you? Now have a look at this monster. This one's on my hugel mound. Now it from the same batch of seeds that I started with the others, but it's just gone phenomenally well on the hugel mound. And the thing I love about it is the bugs don't seem to attack it. And I'll show you the thickness of the stem on this one. It's more like a tree. Let's see if I can see that. It's huge. So again, this one being a perennial, you can actually grow this one from seed, which I did on this one, but you can also take cuttings. Now on the perennial broccoli, providing you remember to harvest all the flowering stems before they actually run to seed, then this should keep going for around 5 years. And then, as I said, you can take cuttings from it and then start the whole cycle again. But you can also then let it run to seed if you wish, and then use those seeds to propagate more. So I think we'll actually leave the tour there. Around. Okay, so I said we'll leave the tour there for today, and hopefully catch you again for the March tour, which I shall film probably mid-March, mid to end of March, so you can see the most changes. So until then, stay well. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll catch up with you soon. Any questions, please feel free to leave a message below. Take care.